Professional football in America is a special game, a unique game. Played nowhere else on earth, it is a rare game. The men who play it make it so.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs and have some fun.
Coming now, buddy. We on our horse all day long. Let's just kick that butt all day long. Pick it up. Don't stop. Pick it up. Let's go.
Get after the ball. Catch to somebody.
Regulators, mount up. We're coming.
Pro football is a mirror of early America, reflecting toughness, courage, and self-denial.
There he is. Whoa. Whoa. Good job. Good job.
That's way to make a play out there, buddy. Nice job.
Over Pirate 2. Ready?
45 blast.
Yeah, swing.
45 blast.
Keep on playing at this level.
Hey everybody, what is going on? It is Friday, June the 6th. It is your boy Justin from JustinPaulSports, and we are going to be going over some All-22 film study with our guy Bobby from Bobby's Big Board. I'll bring him on in just a moment, but I do want to share something with you that I am now doing sports betting professionally. And if you take a look here, you can find me on winnable.com. That's winable.com/JustinPaulSports, all one word. And if you join, you can get 15% off my Sharp Edge Elite plan. And what that is every day I'll put 3 to 4 picks up there that I really like behind the paywall. And you can get 15% off the initial. And by doing that, you can get things going with me, and we'll start working out a partnership to where we are able to execute big time plays, make some big time money, and manage our books smartly. But with that being said, without further ado, I am going to bring on the master of the film himself. Make sure you check out his X at Bobby's Big Board and check out his YouTube, which is also Bobby's Big Board. He will be posting some shorts later tonight. He has told me that in advance. It's kind of an Easter egg I get to give away. He's been uploading all kinds of videos on all kinds of players, your sleepers, your keepers, your dumps, your ads, all the stuff. He's the man, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for Bobby from Bobby's Big Board. What is going on, sir?
What's going on, everybody? I'm so excited to break down the running backs for this class. We're picked out 6 running backs to break down, and obviously running backs were the biggest strength in terms of the skill positions of this draft class. We've got plenty of studs, some generational talent, some big boom, and some bust prospects, and we'll get all into that once we get into the film breakdown.
And I got to say, for the record, Bobby is wearing a Mississippi State jersey, and I won't hold that against him. Obviously, I'm wearing the Alabama hat, and I don't like to pick on smaller schools, and that's not even a jab. I just don't like to do that. Since Coach Leach passed away, they've kind of been in shambles, but we'll see what's going on. What's your feel on Mississippi State this year?
4.5 wins is the over-under. I'd probably take the under on that. Unfortunately, our team had the most transfers of any SEC team in the offseason, unfortunately. So we're definitely struggling, but hopefully, we've got a new coach under center. At least this past year was his first year. Rough season. We're kind of rebuilding, so hopefully we get into some winning seasons, hopefully make a bowl game in the next 2 or 3 years. That's my goal, fingers crossed.
Bobby and I might potentially be working on a collab to come up with some stuff for some football preview. We would definitely like to get that squared away. We just want to see what's going on from there. But we're just working things out. This show is still in its infancy. This is our second show. This week we are doing the running backs. Last week, if you check my channel, we did go over quarterbacks with some lengthy All-22 film. It was fantastic stuff. If you're a Dynasty fan, this is where you want to be. If you're following Bobby on X, and like I said on his YouTube in the introduction, you're going to get some top quality content. His channel is growing way faster than this one is, and I can obviously see why. I don't have the mastery skills that this man does to put together these videos and put together this editing. But I'm like the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. I can deliver a good message. So we work as a great team. We're looking forward to doing these every Friday. I can't see a Friday where we don't, unless we have some pre-existing event that we couldn't make it, in which we would record the show in advance.
Absolutely. Love the Jimmy Hart reference, by the way.
Well, I've got about a few years on you to where I actually saw him go, but I'm sure he's very popular down there in the South, as he is the mouth of the South.
Absolutely.
Any other things you want to plug? Anything you got going on that you want to share?
Outside of my film breakdowns, if you guys are wanting to see some in-depth film breakdowns on some of the more polarizing players like Kyron Williams, Kyle Pitts, guys like that you really don't have a good read on, I'll do film breakdowns on all of those guys, break down the good, the bad, just like I do with these rookie running backs in this show. So if you're interested in some more film breakdowns, you can go check that out for sure.
So, curious what's your take, Kyle Pitts. What do you think is going to happen to him? You think he gets dealt from Atlanta? You think he goes somewhere else? Because there's rumblings that the Steelers had some interest, but I can't imagine he'd be too thrilled to go play for Arthur Smith again and have nobody throw him the football. I mean, Aaron Rodgers never really had an elite tight end when in Green Bay. The closest thing he had was Jermichael Finley, but he couldn't stay healthy. And after that, it was just a disaster his whole tenure the rest of the time. What do you think?
With Kyle Pitts, so from what I saw on the film, I had a lot of comments on that video kind of saying that he gave some half-hearted effort on a lot of plays. I looked at pretty much all of his targets, looked at some plays that he wasn't targeted on as well. I didn't really see half-baked effort on film. I thought he was really fast, especially at his size. Even after the injuries, I thought he looked really good in terms of his speed, his athleticism. Thought in terms of his route running was really good as well. But overall, I would hope to see him get dealt to another team that has a need at tight end. I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers fit that just because they have two tight ends. They have Pat Freiermuth and then the other guy, the really tall guy, I forget his name. They're both pretty solid at the tight end position. So, maybe go some team like the Texans or the Cowboys, somewhere like that where, Dalton Schultz is just and Jake Ferguson's also kind of But, yeah, I would love to see him get traded, but who knows? I think the Falcons are going to Falcon regardless and probably use him as an inline blocker like they've been doing the past couple seasons.
Yeah, the NFC South, I'll tell you, it's definitely it's one of the most fun divisions for me. I mean, full disclosure, as I've said every week, I'm a Packers fan, so obviously NFC North football is where it's at for me. I mean, there's still a touch of that old NFL adage of the history of the game, and the old teams like the Lions and the Packers and, the Bears have been around since basically the foundation of the NFL. But the NFC South has this spicy, New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina, Tampa. They really kind of have. I know they're in the South where the climate doesn't really hit, but it feels like they hate each other, and I kind of like that. Especially Atlanta and New Orleans, when both those teams are good, it gets real messy. Last year at the end of the season, we saw it. There were playoff implications for the Falcons and the Panthers. If I remember correctly, Bryce Young took them to the woodshed and cost them the season.
Yep.
So it's kind of like the NFC South is a lot more fun to me than the AFC South. And I think it's just because the AFC South is such a I don't know. NFC South is fun bad, but it's competitive fun bad.
It's always competitive. It's always like a bunch of 8 to 10 win teams just fighting each other. And then usually there's either the Panthers – they're usually down there unless it was the Cam Newton times where they were actually good. But usually they were pretty, poor. But most of the time it's very competitive in the NFC South. So it always makes those rivalry games just, those division rivalry games always kind of stick out a little bit.
It's funny because I'll watch the Packers when they're on at noon. And most, the last 10 years they really haven't been on at noon because they've been a playoff team and they put those in those, those prime positions. But they had a lot of noon kickoffs last year. And when they're not in the noon kickoff, I really enjoy Red Zone Channel. Do you watch the Red Zone Channel?
I do watch the Red Zone Channel. If you're a dynasty fantasy football guy where you have 5 or 6 leagues, you got to be watching Red Zone, and then have the Chiefs game for me on the side, and just have But they're usually primetime, thankfully. So
the thing is, so when they have the Red Zone and the Packers aren't on it, I like to watch it regardless, even if I was in a dynasty league, because I don't like commercials. And the NFL is so saturated with them. But it seems like they're always cutting to something in the South. Like the Mike Evans and what's the defensive back? His name's escaping me from
the defensive tackle?
No.
Marshawn Lattimore.
or Lattimore was getting into it. You know, like there's
They love fighting all the time.
So it's good old boy football in like good old boy towns, but like it's funny because those guys are drafted there. It's not a regional like college kind of where you're from the area, so it's a little different. But man, the NFC South is some spice.
Absolutely.
So, I'm ready. Are you ready for football season? Like it's kind of you know, I've been watching the UFL, and cheap plug here for my own channel. Like I will be doing a UFL Conference Championship post game Sunday. I'll be doing a live stream after the second game. It'll be a little bit late in the afternoon. I'm going to have my picks, which you got to go to winbull.com/JustinPaulSports to have two of my picks. One I will definitely have for free. It's going to be Michigan and Birmingham as the early game, and then the evening game is going to be DC at St. Louis. I think the Battlehawks will sell out. I think Birmingham's attendance will pick up. I know that you don't watch much of the UFL, but Birmingham's had an attendance problem all season, but they did have there was a report I saw today where the TV ratings there are the strongest. So it's like a per capita thing where Birmingham doesn't, you know, they showed like the populations of the towns, and then they showed, you know, who's doing what and things along that. And like Memphis has the smallest market, and they really struggled with attendance because they were a bad football team, but per capita, they were crushing DC. And I think that's because there's no options in Memphis except for the Grizzlies. You know, in Washington, you've got, you know, the Commanders had a year, and, you know, you got all of the major sports there. So, and Houston really was the worst one, though. But they also had, you know, the UFL's got some fixing to do. But I'm segueing into Canadian Football League. I had my winner last night. I appear to have a lead in tonight's game, but I don't put the jinx on it because that's the hot puts. You don't want to screw up your own picks with your own mouth. It's like a gambler's intuition. And I got a few other that I'll go over on my X channel. And please subscribe to this channel. Please subscribe to Bobby's channel. Please like his stuff. Please promote his stuff for All-22. It is not your basic dumbed down, watered down products that we provide here. I don't want to say products, but just presentation. We want to go over more of an analyst view of these Dynasty rookies and see how they can help you benefit to where you're able to go to win a Dynasty championship. If you can see right there behind me, as I'm pointing right there, I won the championship last season, so I get to hold that trophy on my wall. My wife is thrilled about it. She's thrilled to have that in our room, by the way, because this is where I shoot in the bedroom. So it's just a wonderful piece to have on the wall. When you do great things, you get great prizes. And that's what we're here to help you do. Bobby and I will be in a league where I'll be winning the championship there as well, so he'll be able to explain how all that goes. But he will definitely be the champion of the film. And with that being said, we're going to present Bobby's big board here. And
absolutely.
We're going to go with the running backs. So let's lead it off, Bobby. What you got here?
Yep. So like I said earlier, guys, if you're just now tuning in, the running backs for this class are just absolutely stacked. We're going to be going over the first 6 running backs taken in the draft. And you guys, there's some elite talent in here. And I'm going to be honest, guys, there's no better talent in this class, in my opinion, than Ashton Genty, who we're going to be going over right now. So with Ashton Genty, he's that perfect size for a running back, in my opinion. 5'8", 211 pounds. He's got that low center of gravity where he's not going to be tackled very easily, and absolutely he shows that on the film. That's why he was a top 6 pick. He goes to the Raiders, who don't have the best offensive line, but they're suitable because I think Ashton Genty's talent level is just through the roof. Obviously, he went to Boise State. If you guys didn't watch college football last year, he killed it. Only 21 years of age, he put up almost 400 carries, guys. That's almost unheard of at the college football level. 2,600 rushing yards. Now, obviously, that's close to Barry Sanders' rushing record. Barry Sanders did it in much fewer games. That guy was just a monster, like averaging like 280 yards a game. It's crazy, but nonetheless, an absolute killer season from Ashton Genty. 29 rushing touchdowns. He was scoring pretty much at will every single week. Teams were, I'll show you the film in just a moment, they were stacking the box against him. Didn't matter. And I will say, you look at the receiving numbers, he seems a little subpar there, 138 receiving yards and a touchdown. But if you go back to his junior season, he was up there in terms of catches. They just didn't really use him like that in his junior year. In his sophomore years, he was catching balls like crazy. This year, they were just like, you're going to run the ball 400 times. Now, what we like about Ashton Jeanty, obviously the historic production this past year pretty much proves that he can be a workhorse for you at the NFL level. He was playing a bunch of big-time schools as well. He has elite contact balance. He's probably the hardest person to tackle that I've seen over the past 3-4 years at this point. I mean, he just never goes down on the first tackle. You'll see that in the film over and over again. Then some of the things I didn't like so much was his ball security. With almost 400 carries, guys, he's going to have some fumbles here and there. He's going to have to clean that up a little bit. And then also high mileage. So what I mean by that is he's had a ton of carries over the past 2 seasons, pretty much over the past 3 seasons. And, you know, his body kind of breaks down a little bit towards the end of the season because he's got so many touches of the football. And that's something that we're going to have to look at moving forward with him in terms of his durability. But I think he's going to hold up quite well.
I want to add, so these cards that Bobby puts up here, thank you so much for like giving the audience, you know, a great breakdown. But there's a couple things that I kind of want to push back on you with a little bit. He's still an early declare at 21 years old, so that is something that I personally am a big fan of, which you didn't, you know, say anything against that. And the man obviously has major draft capital, going 6th overall, which is kind of unheard of in the modern NFL. Even though I think that with more teams going to cover 2 defenses, I think you're going to see a return of the run game. We saw it with Josh Jacobs. I mean, Philadelphia is going crazy with what they're doing up there. And one thing that I guess I want to challenge you on a little bit here, and maybe this could be just an anomaly, but you talk about high mileage, right? He's still 21, and I think about Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry in high school, I mean, that's all he did. And then at Alabama, he was the workhorse there, you know. So, and he's still running strong, you know, this much later into his career. Do you think that the Raiders are just going to run him into the ground, or do you think that, because Boise State did, that was their playoff ticket. I mean, if you look at their roster, they didn't have anything elite. I mean, they took Oregon to the wire, and his numbers are kind of skewed for Jeanty. This is kind of an NFL season because they played in the Mountain West Championship game, and then they played a playoff game against Penn State. And I just think that with the high mileage, you know, when you're 21, how high your miles really are. I'm just, you know, I'm not being combative with you, or I'm just suggesting that, you know, with somebody that weighs that much at that height, I mean, Derrick Henry is obviously 6 feet plus, but here you can see that I think it might just be a 1-year high mileage thing, and I don't know if the Raiders are going to run him to death. What do you think?
So I do predict that Ashton Jeanty's going to get anywhere from 220 to 250 carries next year with the Raiders for his rookie season, just because they have nobody else there. They have like Sincere McCormick, Zamir White, Dylan Lawby, who had 1 carry last year and fumbled. Like, those guys are not on Ashton Jeanty's level. No disrespect to any of those guys, but sure. With Ashton Jeanty, it's kind of hard to find negatives about him. He can catch the football. He's got great vision, very good speed, great contact balance, like great elusiveness as well. There's very few things that you can nitpick about his game. And in terms of the high mileage, like with Derrick Henry, like you said, those guys are very few and far between. And I do think Ashton Jeanty held up very well under the almost 400 attempts. But that's just something that we need to look at in terms of dynasty owners. Like, how much was he utilized at Boise State? And like, the more carries, you know, the more potential damage that he can have to his body, even if it's minor. It's just stuff to look at. It's not necessarily a negative to him. It's just something to monitor for the most part. But I do want to get straight into the film here. And I'm not going to go over the play in this angle. I'll go over the play in this other one, but it's just a simple inside zone concept where he literally breaks every single tackle from not cornerbacks and safeties, guys. It's from D tackles and edge rushers and takes it all the way to the end zone. So let me kind of go over this play call real quick. Very simple inside zone here. So basically he's just going to take it, and your O linemen are basically going in a wall to one side, right? And then normally the tackle is going to be on a hinge block. This tight end is actually going to be on the hinge block here. And he's basically reading A gap, B gap, C gap, inside to out. He ends up taking the A gap here if I remember correctly. Also, signature stance here from Ashton Jeanty. Unfortunately, we're not going to see that very much in his rookie season with the stand-up. They've already got him into a more traditional running back position. But you see Ashton Jeanty here running to the left side. D-tackle does a very good job here of getting around the center very quickly. Doesn't matter to Ashton Jeanty, guys. He's going to cut back, use those sweet feet of his. He's got some insane feet, guys. Just want to go over this one more time. Very good penetration from the D-tackle. Doesn't matter. That zero tech gets around him like no problem. He's wrapped up by 3 guys, bounces off of him. Get off of me. Uses a stiff arm. His stiff arm's incredible. And then the thing that people kind of knock on him a little bit is his long speed. And guys, I don't see that from his long. I don't see that on tape at all. But anyways, yeah, long speed's incredible.
When he was cutting through the middle there, that linebacker had a one-on-one opportunity to make a play, and he just absolutely did not make the play. He got shook out of his feet. What a run. What a run that is. Oh,
sorry, guys. No, I got an alarm going off real quick.
Uh-oh. Got a smoke alarm chirp.
Yeah. But one sec while my cam's off here. Here's another play. It's versus Oregon, and I believe this is week 1 of the regular season, right?
That is correct. Boise State opened with Oregon. It was one of the premier matchups of the week, and it came down to the wire. In fact, Boise State had a lead late in this game and just simply couldn't hold off the number 1 team in the country. In their house, this game was in Eugene, and, I think sometimes these teams like Oregon or any big school can get off their own feet and think that they're just going to go into somebody's house or have somebody come into their house and shove them around because of the name on the side of their helmet. A team that I thought, I kind of felt that way with Colorado in their week 2 home game against North Dakota State, I believe it was, or South Dakota State, and they pushed Dion and them to the limit and managed to pull away at the end. Now, this is a much better team than a FCS school, and they've clearly showed it by going to the playoffs and winning their conference. But I think sometimes when you just got these powerhouse teams and you're hosting, you can kind of get ahead of yourself or behind yourself. And it's part of the psychology of football, you think that you just kind of own somebody, or you think that you're just, hot shit and you take it loosely, and it can cost you any game. I think that week 1 this year, Alabama opens at Florida State. Florida State's got everything to gain. Alabama's got some pressure on them this year a little bit now because the Saban era is over, and last year you kind of weeded all that out, and now there's SEC championship aspirations. Florida State, we don't know what it's going to be. So hopefully that doesn't happen in Tallahassee for my sake, but that's what it felt like it could have been for them.
So in this next play here, guys, it's versus Oregon week 1, like you said, and it's an outside zone play. So he's basically running to the outside, breaks off that nose tackle, breaks off some more tackles. Like I said, very elite contact balance. Doesn't even get tackled at the very end. So basically they're going to be pulling the tight end here. And he's just going to be running basically to the perimeter here. And honestly, same thing. I will say Boise State's O-line, when I was going through this film, wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. I thought with a 2,600-yard rusher, I thought their O-line was going to be much better than it was. In the interior, was pretty subpar. So you can see the center again, just like in the last play, he gets beat pretty much. Well, the left guard gets beat immediately by number 90. Who cares? Get off of me. Get off of me. 2 more tackles. That's 3 broken tackles. 4 broken tackles, 5 broken tackles, still stays on his feet, guys. That's absolutely insane contact balance. That's something that you're going to see time and time again at the NFL level as well. The dude is basically a bowling ball that has very good speed, great elusiveness as well. I didn't grab any clips showcasing that elusiveness, but he's got some sweet feet. He's got some power as well. And he kind of has that kind of, I don't want to say Kyron Williams, but, those type of shorter backs that are, more hefty like he is. They just have that low center of gravity, and they're just pretty much impossible to arm tackle. Yeah. Now, this is some of the bad plays. I picked 2 plays from the same game, actually. This is a game where he was, center stage. Everybody was watching. It was in the college football playoff quarterfinal versus Penn State. And look at the defense, guys. I mean, look at the defense that Penn State's running. You see any safeties back here?
No. Right. It's right for play action. Right for it.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, with Boise State, they really didn't have that much talent in terms of the receiver position. And they got this guy. Who cares about play action when you can just run the football? You see all of these guys just crowding the line of scrimmage. This is screaming, please don't run the football. Doesn't matter, though. They run basically an inside zone again anyways. I don't know why they ran to the interior of their line when I saw them get beat routinely. But this is just a play where I would love for Ashton Jeanty. It's kind of a lapse in his vision. I would have just loved him to bounce outside and kind of go, because everybody's playing these gaps here. Everybody's playing the A and B gaps. I would have just loved him to cut outside here. This is one of the bad plays. He basically just runs into the back of his own lineman and ends up being basically a -1, -2 yard gain. And you'll see it even better in this clip here, in this angle. So
there's Abdul Carter right there. Yeah.
Yep. And Abdul Carter, and as much as people love him, I didn't love him for his run defense that much. But you see, I would have just loved, you see running back 101 guys, you're always reading your leverage of your blocker. So if a guy's to your blocker's outside hip here, you're going to want to cut it back if you can. And Ashton Jeanty absolutely has that cutback ability, but he just tries to get skinny and go through this gap. And it just really didn't end up working just because he runs into 85 or number 3 here. Just not the best play. I think he would have had a little bit better of a time if he were to cut to the outside to that C gap and tried to get to the perimeter with that speed of his, but ends up not really working out too much for him. So that is something that you'll see. He's not perfect. He will, if they crowd the line of scrimmage, he's not like some god where he's going to be able to break every single tackle like he did show in those first couple clips, and you'll see that all the time. But there is a way to stop him. Okay, it's hard to find bad clips of Ashton Jeanty, guys. I'm just going to tell you right now. But this next play, also in the Fiesta Bowl versus Penn State, this gets into some of his ball security issues. So this is just a inside zone play, kind of semi-power as well. You see the contact balance, right? And I know you didn't get to see it that well, but he ends up fumbling the football, and it goes right into the defender's hands. He did have, I forget how many fumbles he had, but he had a decent amount of fumbles. Like I said, if you have 400 carries, guys, you're going to have a few fumbles. But love the cutting ability here to the outside. And you see him just kind of fighting a little bit too much. And that 41 just pops that ball out. You can see it right here. And that ball just flies right into number 6 hands. He keeps both feet down. Good ball skills for number 6. And a turnover. So you can't have that. He had a few turnovers with the football, putting the ball on the ground. Obviously, I don't think that hinders him at all at the NFL level, just because they were very few and far between. But yeah, love Ashton Jeanty. He's by far and away my RB1 in the class. If you're in your rookie drafts, if you're not in some weird, crazy scoring where it really handicaps running backs, he should absolutely be the 101 in probably 99% of drafts. There wouldn't be anybody else that I would consider at the 101 in your rookie drafts than Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, he's mostly unanimous. The only thing I could think of besides a 1-1 that wouldn't be him would be if you were a quarterback needy team and you took Cam Ward in a super flex league. But other than that, I think you're right. Like, I don't think there was any running back that has this kind of ability.
Yeah,
good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Yep. And we're gonna keep it rocking, guys. Next guy on our list is Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. Look, guys, This dude's a stud. You look at the size, 6 foot, 221 pounds. He's got that prototypical workhorse frame. He was a first-round pick as well. Some people were they were curious on who would go in the first round outside of Ashton Jeanty. Everyone knew that Ashton Jeanty was going to be a consensus first-round pick, but we didn't really know who that second back in the first round was going to be, if there was one. Ends up being Omarion Hampton, landing with the Chargers, which is an interesting fit because they went out and got an Alabama alumni in Najee Harris. And, it was interesting because we thought Najee Harris was a relatively, reliable back, never missed a game. And then they go out and get Omarion Hampton. I guess Jim Harbaugh was just like, this is my type of back. I have to grab him. I guess they didn't expect him to fall all the way to him. I think they also thought the Broncos were going to take him. I think 18th overall, I think, is where they were picking. Obviously, he's 22 years old, back-to-back really solid seasons as well at North Carolina. So in 2024, 281 attempts, 1,600 rushing yards, 15 touchdowns. Also a pretty avid receiver, almost 400 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns that way. But he's pretty good both ways. I think he's got the receiving chops to be a full 3-down runner at the next level. Now, I will say he's probably going to start off a little bit slow, guys, just because they're Jim Harbaugh's going to have him rotating into the offense slowly but surely. And Najee Harris, if you're an Omarion Hampton owner, Najee Harris is going to be very annoying for you guys, at least until next season. I think maybe Omarion Hampton takes over the majority of the role by maybe week 8, week 9. But early on in the season, I wouldn't expect him to be just getting all the carries and Najee not get any. I just don't think that makes sense. Now, in terms of what I like about Omarion Hampton, obviously the size. Now, there are some guys that are just big that don't really showcase any power. He absolutely showcases power. We'll see that in the first clip, guys. And for his size at 6 foot 221, he ran a very good 40-yard dash. He's got some insane acceleration for the size as well. He's not like a James Conner or something where the acceleration's kind of like a slow burn, but once he gets up there, he's fast. He's pretty much an instant accelerator, which is very good. That's one of the biggest qualities that I can ask for in my running backs. And then in terms of his limitations, I do think his long speed's a little I think it's fine. I think it's NFL worthy, but, don't expect him to take it to the house for like 70, 80 yards, similarly to how Derrick Henry does. And then he's got some limited agility. I will say he's got some pretty solid feet in terms of his cuts behind the line of scrimmage, but once he gets past the line of scrimmage, he's not really making people miss with jukes and spins and things like that. He's more so like a stiff arm guy running over you type of football player. So, yeah, I love Omarion Hampton. He wasn't quite my RB2, but overall I think he's a really solid prospect.
So before we jump into the film, I forgot to ask you on Ashton Jeanty. What would be your comp trade value? Who would you trade that's not a rookie? Like, obviously you're not going to trade another rookie in a draft, but what would it take to acquire him from you if you had Ashton Jeanty? What would be an offer you would take?
So I actually did have the 101 in one of my leagues, and I traded him for a haul. I want to say it was J.J. McCarthy, Zach Charbonnet, Josh Jacobs, and a first-round pick in 2027, and I think a little bit more. I can't remember, but it was a haul. Now, I do have Jeanty as a top 5 running back in Dynasty right now, and I think it would be very underwhelming for him to be outside of the top 10 finish as a rookie. So I think he's going to really hit the ground running. He's going to have a ton of carries next year just because, like I said, no competition. So, yeah, it would take a lot. I think it would take multiple first-round picks worth of value to acquire Ashton Jeanty for me.
Good stuff. Before he jumps into this film, I will say for Hampton stats here, North Carolina did not play in the postseason. Very mediocre football team, still getting over 1,500 yards and 15 tutties, 38 catches. That's extremely efficient football. I think that with the Chargers offense, they'd like to run the ball. I mean, Harbaugh ran it last year with somebody who just can't stay healthy in J.K. Dobbins. And you talked about Najee Harris for a moment. Like, I am an Alabama fan, but I think that he's a volume hog at Pittsburgh. I think he, like you said, the durability is what saved him. But there's a reason that Ramondre Stevenson got an extension and Najee did not. And I think that you're kind of on the same line of thinking that I am. I don't even think Najee holds on to the job the whole year. He's only on a 1-year deal.
Very inexpensive 1-year deal as well.
Yeah.
I think it's like $8 million with incentives or something like that. It's not a very expensive deal.
So if the Chargers, I just, they made the playoffs last year. They surprised me. I thought they were going to really struggle with that roster. New coach, coming off the cheating at Michigan and stuff like that, I thought it would be a little bit of a circus in his first year, but they arrived. And I believe Greg Roman is the offensive coordinator there. So they're back together. I think that Hampton takes the job sooner than later, but let's take a look at what he does for those at home.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of what he does, guys, like I said, he's a very good accelerator. So this is him versus I forget the team that he's playing against here. But this is a counter play, basically, where you got two pulling guards here, and you'll just see him fight through contact. And this is something that he's really good at. You see three guys on top. That's a beautiful play. We'll see another angle of this now. Actually, and yeah, so I want to say there was a little unnecessary roughness on. I don't remember. I think it was on the defense here. Is this NC State? This is NC State, I believe. So you see very solid vision. His vision is very underrated. So you see he's got a free tackler here that has a really good tackle attempt on him. Doesn't matter. He runs straight through the guys. You see 78 pushing him. Way to go. But as you can see, he's just churning them legs. And that's something that, Nick Saban's going to teach you. All the really good running back, coaches and good coaches in terms of offenses. They're going to teach you to just keep churning those legs, guys. And that's exactly what he does. He gets an extra 15 yards after contact here. That's
shout out to that lineman.
Play. Shout out to 78.
He's the right tackle pulling. And, just watch him again on that. The right tackle pulling and then pushing downfield 15 yards. That shows up, that'll show up on the coaches. This is obviously coach's film. But that helps. Hampton did a majority of the work, but man, what a play there by that right tackle.
Way to go breaking that first tackle too. I mean, there's very few running backs that are breaking that tackle. Also want to go off on a side note. This guy right here, the right guard for North Carolina, how big do you think that guy is? Just curious. If you had to guess.
Probably 260 pounds. He looks kind of light.
He's 5'11", 270, 280 pounds. He got drafted because he is a dog.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to show up on this play, but fun fact from him, he's a great block.
Oh.
That's a good wham block from the right guard there. He's phenomenal. The only reason he fell a little bit in the draft is because he's so undersized. But he's a little pit bull, man. I love him out of North Carolina. But you see we're talking about Omari and Hampton here. That's a great tackle attempt by 34. Rolls with him as well, trying to get him down to the ground. That's textbook tackling. Omari Hampton just says, I don't want none of it. 78 is a slight MVP here, but that's a beautiful play from Omari Hampton. So this next play kind of showcases some of his acceleration here, guys. And you're going to see, I said, he's 6 foot, 220 pounds. He's a big boy. Watch this acceleration. Boom.
Man.
That's fighting through a tackle. Now, this is a slight negative, and I do want to go over this with him as well. He is a car crash. He goes just full on. He's running over you. And this is basically just a halfback draw. And you're going to see him have a wide open lane here. Great blocking from North Carolina here, but I wanted to showcase this more so in terms of his acceleration. He's a big back, guys, and he uses those long legs of his to explode upfield. And that's really good. But you'll see when he goes to get tackled, guys, he never goes down easy. He's going to run over you and punish you. Now, thankfully, he's held up fairly well over his last 2 seasons where he's really utilized heavily. But yeah, guys, that's something that you want to monitor because he's explosive and he's not stopping the gas when he gets hit. So that might lead to some injury issues at the next level. But so far, no injury issues thus far. So here's another inside zone play here where
this is Virginia. This is Virginia here.
Yeah, this is Virginia. So this is an inside zone, and sometimes he just loves to just be physical a little bit too much, and this is kind of where one of the issues that come up. I did say his vision's underrated for the most part, but he doesn't really have that agility, like I said, to cut back, right? We'll talk about a guy in a little bit, RJ Harvey, who can cut it back anywhere on the field whenever he wants. But you see there's not really much rushing lane open here. Right. I'd love for him to just cut it outside here or take this C gap where you've got a line here next to the offensive tackle here, the right tackle. But he just kind of explodes into the gap to just get – and, you know, I kind of looked at this play and I was like, okay, what's the down and distance? This is 1st and 10.
Yeah.
So he's just running into a pile of bodies and just trying to push the pile. That works, I guess, sometimes if you want to get 3-4 yards in a cloud of dust, as people say. But I'd love for him to be a little bit more efficient and just, you know, I would just love for him to be a little bit more efficient and find those lanes instead of just, you can see it a little bit better here. But I'd like to see him find those lanes a little bit easier instead of just running into the first, because there's nothing open here. Yeah, it's hats on hats here. So, like I said a little bit earlier, guys, in terms of blocking leverage, he does have good leverage here, but there's just no hole for him to run through. And he's good at getting skinny, and he's trying to get skinny here. It doesn't really work. So he's just putting his pads down. He does have pretty good pad level as well, so he's always falling forward when he gets tackled. But overall, guys, I would much rather him be a little bit more patient behind the line instead of just exploding through. Now, here's another play here where it's kind of a similar issue.
Same game.
Same game as well. He didn't really have a good game versus Virginia. This is a play where you have a very solid cutback lane here, guys. I know three's basically playing this gap, but you're powerful enough to where you can break this tackle and cut it to the outside. Just be a little bit more patient behind the line instead of just taking the first gap. I don't know why he goes to the A gap here. Doesn't really make sense to me because you really don't have the leverage here. You know, 55 and 90 both kind of are in the way here. And, you know, you already have 3 playing this gap. So it's like, I would much rather you cut it to the outside. And that's just something he doesn't do. He loves running in between the guards in that A gap and B gap. And I'd love to just see him be able to be a little bit more creative as a runner. That's basically the only knock that I have because he doesn't really put the football on the ground. He doesn't really showcase bad pad level. And he's got pretty much good athletic traits all the way around except for some limited agility. But I'd love to see him cut a little bit more behind the line of scrimmage instead of just going through that first hole every single time.
Good stuff, man. I got a couple quick comments here. We got a let's go, a happy Friday coming on in. We'd love to hear that. Thanks for watching the show. And then we have ProCatch Podcast come in and say Hampton and Caleb Johnson will be the 2 best, but I do know that we are going to go over Caleb Johnson. Is he next?
He is not next. He was actually – I did them in the order in which they were drafted. So
okay. We'll get to him,
He's actually the last guy that we're going to be covering. Fun fact.
Okay. Well, it's been you know, I think Hampton's going to have a good career. I think he's going to have a pretty decent career to where, you know, with Jim Harbaugh over there, they're going to go ahead and take care of some business and
run him a ton too.
Well, you know, I'm a Quentin Johnston truther. I know that everybody likes to dogpile on him that he's got hands issues, but the man had a few games where he had multiple touchdowns. When he was at TCU, he was dogging people. One of the best separators in football. I think he's going to put it together. I think the pressure comes off him a little bit because they'll have
Harris.
Well, not only that, they'll have the running game, and they still got Ladd McConkey.
Yeah,
you know, I think the Chargers are going to be all right. But
yeah,
good stuff, man. Good stuff on Hampton.
So my pro comp for him, if you wanted to know, is an Alabama alumni. I kind of comped him to a little bit of Josh Jacobs. They run so similarly, man. They're both super physical. I will say Josh Jacobs just kind of is a little bit harder to tackle, but in terms of Amari and Hampton, I think they showcase a lot of similar traits, and I think he can be utilized a similar way as well with the Chargers.
So the only running backs, you know, you bring up Alabama, right? And my entire life, I've seen them have some really good ones and some marginal ones. Like I remember the Sean Alexander era, you know, and Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson, who just completely went on a whole different path. And as a Packer fan, I was hoping that they'd get one of those guys, and they did with Eddie Lacy. But unfortunately, Eddie Lacy kind of ate himself out of the league with his Chinese dude.
Yeah.
But he did win Rookie of the Year, and he had a couple thousand years. Like,
yeah, his first couple seasons were pretty solid, man.
But then I have to tell you, last season when I remember I was working at a previous job and was out for a luncheon, a group luncheon, and that was the first day of free agency. We happened to be eating this place called Thirsty Lion in Arizona, and just got my food, right? And the news broke that the Packers signed Josh Jacobs, and Josh Jacobs in that entire Saban era actually was my favorite one to watch.
Really?
And I think it's because of a couple things, like obviously Derrick Henry taking the Heisman Trophy away from Leonard Fournette in that game, because Leonard Fournette was the big dog until he couldn't run against an NFL defense. Right. But I know Josh Jacobs, he never started because he couldn't get ahead of Damian Harris.
Mm-hmm.
But
was he there with Kenyon Drake as well, or is that a little bit before? Kenyon Drake was a little bit before, right? I loved him at Alabama as well. I thought he was a stud.
But Josh Jacobs, his running style, like for some reason, there's something in him being an absolute animal. And I saw it with the Raiders too. And then when the Packers signed him, I was over the moon joyous with it. And then for him to go out and have the year he had.
Phenomenal year.
And it's just like I get to watch one of my favorite Alabama players play on my favorite NFL team. Super cool.
And he caught his first receiving touchdown as well with the Packers. Fun fact. Yeah. Pretty good receiving back, too. I know that's a little bit of an underrated part of his game, but definitely love to see Josh Jacobs feast, especially when Jordan Love was out. They were just like, Josh Jacobs, you're going to get 35 carries a game. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, but yeah, that was my pro comp for Omarion Hampton. But the next guy that we're going to be looking at here, some people's favorite back of the draft. He's not quite my favorite because I think he's a little bit more blocking dependent, which I'll get to in a moment. But it's Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State, formerly of Ole Miss as well. So he's 6 foot, 221 pounds. He's basically the same size as Omarion Hampton. I don't find him to be as physical as Hampton, but very good draft capital. He's an early second-round pick. He was the 36th overall pick. He lands with the Cleveland Browns, who I will say Nick Chubb I obviously think is a little bit better of a prospect than Judkins just because Nick Chubb just had a phenomenal career until he got hurt. I do see some similarities in his game, though, and I think Quinshon Judkins is going to slot pretty much as the Nick Chubb replacement. They're going to run him a bunch. I know they drafted Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. I wasn't really a big Dylan Sampson guy just because I thought he was kind of a linear athlete that didn't really have good vision and was, if you gave him a hole, he had some pretty good speed down the stretch, but that was about it. I think he's a decent change of pace guy. I think that backfield is solely Quinshon Judkins. Don't think Jerome Ford's going to get nearly what people think in terms of usage. And he's 21 years old. He's an early declare. I will say as a Dynasty aficionado, running back age for me doesn't really mean too much in my opinion because most of these running backs are going to have 6-ish years and then basically fade out of relevance. So age for me in terms of wide receivers I think is very important. But in terms of running backs, I can be indifferent to that in all honesty. But his 2024 stats, he's been very consistent throughout his college career over his past 3 seasons. 194 carries, which isn't a whole lot of usage because we'll be talking about his duo partner at the running back position up next. But he had over 1,000 yards, very efficient, 14 touchdowns. They used him on the goal line a ton. And he also had 22 receptions for 161 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. I will say he's got some decent hands. I don't know if he's going to be taking third down work from, somebody else like a Dylan Sampson or something like that. But I will say he's a very good 3-down back for the most part. Very big, powerful runner. He's got some consistent production. As a true freshman, I think he put up like over 1,400 yards and 10-plus touchdowns at Ole Miss. And then he kind of regressed in his sophomore season. They didn't really have as good of blocking for him. I think he was only like 4.8 yards a carry, which in college is not very good. But he was playing in the SEC. Then this past year, like I said, back-to-back 1,000-yard years. back-to-back-to-back years with 10-plus touchdowns. Now, in terms of what I don't like about him all that much, I don't think his long speed's there. I think, I think his 40 time is around a 4.5 for me. I think he ran a little bit faster than that, but I think he'll get chased down at the next level. And then I think he's a little blocking dependent. I don't think he can create on his own, which we'll dive into the film. I think, he's going to be really good in that Browns offense just because they have a good running scheme for him to run behind. But overall, he's got some things to clean up for sure. But let's go ahead and dive. Well, I guess do you have any before we start? Do we have any opinions on Quinshon Judkins before we dive into the film?
I think he's going to be the dog there, like you said. I think he's going to be a 3-down back. I like how he runs the football. Seems like there's some violence in there. Based on his stats, I'll just be brief. The man still got 1,000 yards, and he was not RB1. It was a split backfield. And Ohio State absolutely pummeled pretty much everybody they got in their way. I think this is a good breakdown. So, yeah, let's just jump right into it.
Yeah, let's jump right into it. So, first thing, I mean, what better place for it to start than the national championship where,
Let's
he
go.
definitely looked pretty solid versus Notre Dame. And, in that 10 to 15-yard range for the most part, they did use Quinshon Judkins pretty much exclusively as this more violent runner. And you'll see this is basically a wham play. And he's actually, fun fact, guys, he's supposed to be running to that right side, but didn't really see what he likes. Great second effort there to get into the end zone for a touchdown. So this is what we call wham, guys. So it's basically kind of like a zone run scheme here. You got all your guys basically blocking to one side. And the problem to that is you have an unblocked edge rusher here. So that's what this guy's job is. He's basically going to go across the formation and wham into that guy. That's hence why they call it wham. So this could be a counter play as well, and they're running it like wham. But no, I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be running right through this gap right here. But I don't think he likes what these linebackers are doing, and that's why he cuts to the outside. Pretty quick cut here, too, and good stiff arm. He's got some really, like you said, he runs very violent.
Yeah.
Puts the pads down, and you see him just churning his legs, and that instinct to just put that ball out across the pylon. Good ball spin as well. Yeah, that's a great play from Quinshon Judkins, guys. Great second effort. Kind of showcases his ability. He's got a little bit of sweet feet, too. I like his ability to cut behind the line of scrimmage a little bit more than Omarion Hampton. I just like Omarion Hampton as an athlete a little bit more. But you see him just lower his pad level, and he's always going to fall forward. If you are familiar with guys like James Cook, those types of backs where maybe they're not the most physical at the point of attack, I will say Quinshon Judkins is that, but he's always going to be falling forward for extra yardage. I mean, he basically got tackled on the 4-yard line, and he fell forward into the end zone. That was a great play from Quinshon Judkins.
Before you start that, for those of you that play college football, the video game, they had to do an update specifically on him because his spin move was so out of control.
Yeah.
He was unquestionably the best running back in the game. Totally fun to use. But I had to say, I think he's going to do some serious work in Cleveland because we don't know what their quarterback situation is, so they're going to have to do something real friendly without Nick Chubb there.
Yep.
And Jerome Ford is the former Crimson Tide player who transferred to Cincinnati. I did like him as a prospect. I think he's a serviceable running back, but he's not a 3-down back. He doesn't have the abilities that Judkins does at all.
Absolutely. And that was kind of proven last year where, Nick Chubb was not healthy off of that horrible. I mean,
gruesome.
Dude, Nick Chubb, it's really unfortunate, guys, because Nick Chubb, you've probably heard some of the quotes before. Nick Chubb is just an incredible person. And if you ever saw the clip of his coach saying, there's some guys that are high maintenance and there's some guys that are low maintenance. Nick Chubb is no maintenance. He's zero maintenance. Dude just goes out there and wants to play football. And I love Nick Chubb coming out of Georgia, but has that horrible leg injury at Georgia, basically tears his knee all the way apart, comes back, has a phenomenal, and on the pace he was going to be a Hall of Fame back. And then the same injury happens. and he's got to recover from it, and he's out there in the offseason squatting who knows how much weight. You see him jump into the sky. He's just a freak athlete, man. I really hope a team like the Bears or a running back needy team can go out there and grab him so he can kind of showcase his ability a little bit more. But this is in the
man. Your Chiefs.
I mean, we kind of got Kareem Hunt, which, you know, obviously isn't Nick Chubb, but we've already got him signed, so there's no point in us signing Nick Chubb. But I would love Nick Chubb in a Chiefs uniform. I'm not going to lie. But this next play here is in the Rose Bowl, college football playoffs versus Oregon, who's a very solid team. We saw what Ohio State did to Oregon, unfortunately, really kind of put them through the ringer, kind of got some backlash for that regular season game. Yeah. But you're going to see him kind of navigate. Like I said, he's got some sweet feet. He's not the best in terms of his long speed, and we'll get a better view of this, but this is just him navigating the pocket expertly. This is showing some really good ability in terms of run IQ, knowing where he needs to go, following his blocking leverage, and even better, just kind of using some quick cut games. So this is a power play, basically. So you're going to have multiple people coming across the formation and being lead blockers, and you're going to have multiple double teams. So power is really good against your 3-down linemen, which Oregon has here, and then they have the 2 guys that are basically your stand-up edge rushers here. Very good play versus this defensive line front. And you're just going to see Judkins cut to the right gap immediately, fight off an arm tackle, cut to the outside to get away from that guy, follow his blocking leverage. And like I said, you always got to find the leverage. So this guy's has an ability to tackle him. So he's like, no, you're not going to get me. Cuts out of the way. This guy's out of the play, so no worries here. And then use a very nasty spin move there, and then fights for not a spin move, a juke move here. Boom, makes that guy basically puts him on skates, number 0. Very great recovery from 0, though. I'm not gonna lie. Cut through there and just fight for the extra 3-4 yards and fall down. Like I said, he's always falling forward. Beautiful play from Nick Chubb, and not Nick Chubb, Quinshon Judkins.
It's all right, man.
So next up, I want to say this wasn't a great play from Quinshon Judkins. So this is a kind of a trick play where you fake it to the right and then you end up coming back. So it's kind of like counter in some ways, but it's not exactly counter. And this just kind of looked like a very slow play from Judkins. Like I said, he's not the quickest accelerator, and I'd love for him to cut up into this gap. Now, I know he sees this guy as a lead blocker, but running back 101, you got to read your leverage on your blocks. 77 doesn't have a great hold on him, and unfortunately, he's going to make the play. Now, he does try to stop and cut back, but he's just not quick enough, and that's just something that he just won't have. Now, if you get him into a gap and he gets a little head of steam in front of him, he's pretty hard to tackle. But behind the line of scrimmage, if he doesn't get that velocity in front of him, he's pretty easy to tackle. And, you know, that's why you saw his yards per carry be so poor in his sophomore season at Ole Miss. And what also kind of led him to being a transfer is because if you get anybody behind the line of scrimmage or he gets any type of grab on him towards the line of scrimmage, he's basically going down for a no gain, which is probably my biggest knock on him. That's why I say he's blocking dependent. So here's another play here where I'd love to see him cut to the outside again. And, I mean, it's kind of hit or miss on some of these plays, guys, because I'd love to see him cut to the outside and basically have a foot race with this guy who's already reading down on this play here. But he doesn't really do that, and it's kind of the same thing with Omarion Hampton where he's just running into contact and trying to get 3 or 4 yards. Now, I will say with him, I think I'd rather him do this play instead of cut it outside, which I know sounds a little bit contradictory, but it leads into something that I think is a kind of a knock on him, and it's because he doesn't really have that speed to get around the perimeter, because I think if he does cut it to the outside, he might end up losing a couple yards.
Sure.
Now, he is pretty efficient when it comes to just running, taking the lane and just taking 3 or 4 yards. And like I said, always falls forward. But with Quinshon Judkins, and you'll see another angle of this here, right? I really wish the tight end there would have been able to make that block a little. Number 82 here, you'll see.
Yeah,
I wish he would have held 20 a little bit better, but
yeah, let's say the line looks like they kind of gave in on that play a little bit.
yeah, a little bit, but it's just something that I love about certain running backs, right? Where they do have that ability, like Saquon Barkley or somebody like that can really cut it to the outside and, be a foot race to the sideline and get some plays done that way when the play breaks down. Quinshon Judkins, outside of structure, I don't think is a very good back, but I will say he's very consistent and he will always fall forward for a couple extra yards pretty much every time, and I think that's why he got drafted so highly.
I think he's going to be a pretty solid back. You talked about sweet feet. I think that's a little more important to me than the breakaway speed, as you call it, like that long speed. Because I think if you have the sweet feet, as you call, the sweet feet abilities, you're going to get more chunk yardage than you will just the ability to bust a seam down there. I think that ability to have the long speed plays more into a wide receiver than it would a running back.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think that Judkins can carry a football team. I think he can get average 100 yards a game, on the right game plan. I mean, the Browns, if they can run, if they can block, and if they can get quarterback play, that's just, game management. And that's all that you need at the NFL. You don't need to be a superstar all the time to win in the National Football League. You need to be smart, and you have to have a run game. And I think that Judkins is going to be game planned for, by Cleveland. And I think that they're in a division where they're going to have to run the ball because their wide receiving weapons aren't exactly elite. I mean, Jerry Jeudy is, former Crimson Tide alum, and I do like Jerry Jeudy, but I don't think he's a number one yet. It's just wait and see.
Yeah.
Last question on Judkins. What is your trade value? Who would you trade for him?
So I do value him somewhere in the 105, 106 range in terms of where you should be picking him in your rookie drafts. Now, I have him in my B tier in terms of running backs for Dynasty. He's probably around that running back 10 to 12 for me, but he's super young. He's going to be the premier back in that offense. I don't know how well he's going to do in his rookie season. Hopefully we're looking at 1,000-yard back here, but it all depends on how well that Browns O-line can block for him. Because like I said, if the blocking doesn't work in his favor, you're not going to see like a Saquon Barkley, for example, who had terrible blocking in New York and still had over 1,000 yards as a rookie. Judkins is just a little bit more limited, but I will say sweet feet, like you said. Guys like Kyron Williams, for example, has been very, very successful in the NFL because of that low center of gravity and those sweet feet of his. But with Judkins, I do think he's a little bit better of an athlete than Kyron Williams. I would probably value him over Kyron Williams. So I'd probably trade him for, I think Josh Jacobs straight up, in my opinion. I'd rather Josh Jacobs, a running back around that tier if I was wanting to tier down. But if you drafted Judkins with the 105 or the 106, you're going to want an overpay to ship him away. So I would keep him if I had him, unless the offer was like astounding. Because we just got to see what he does in year one.
I think he's going to get 10 touchdowns. I'm calling it right now.
He definitely can. If they get to the goal line enough, if that offense gets on the goal line enough, he's very hard to stop on the goal line, hence why he had 14 touchdowns last year. He didn't have a bunch of really long touchdowns. He had most of his touchdowns were within the 10-yard line. So, yeah, I think he's a great goal line back, and I think he can be a very good 3-down back at the next level as well. So.
Yeah, viewers, we thank you for joining us on the All-22 Dynasty Football Show, episode number 2. We are cruising through our incoming rookie class. I know these videos should have probably been done near the NFL draft, but I've just very recently met Bobby and understood that this is what we like. And
Absolutely.
Next year, we're going to live stream the NFL draft for sure in real time and have plenty of content and break down all your Dynasty needs on this channel. And do not forget to subscribe to my Winnable at winnable.com/JustinPaulSports. I have picks that you can purchase to get yourself your little money, a little vacation money, a little spending money. You want to do some winning, I'm your guy. But with that being said, let's move on to our next running back prospect, which I'm thinking is TreVeyon Henderson.
That's absolutely right. So, guys, I might be a part of the minority here. And, I've got a couple of other guys that are really big film buffs. We all love TreVeyon Henderson. I mean, we absolutely love him. I had Quinshon Judkins as my RB5 in the class. I had Hampton as my RB3. Obviously, Genty's my RB1. The guy at that RB2 spot is TreVeyon Henderson out of Ohio State. So, obviously, his build's a little smaller than what you'd want, 5'10", 202 pounds. But Jahmyr Gibbs is in that kind of range in terms of height and weight. And he was an early second-round pick. He was a 38th overall pick in the second round to the Patriots, who kind of been lacking. They've kind of been lacking at the running back position. Ramondre Stevenson, although I do like his feet and I love him as a physical back, and he's a little bit bigger, he really struggled to keep the football in his hands last season. He had multiple benchings because of him fumbling the football. And they got a new regime in there, right? They've got a new regime in there, and I think this guy's going to be their premier back. I think he's going to be taking all the high-value touches. He's only 22 years old, and he showcased some fantastic ability on film, and we'll go over that in a moment. But in 2024, he had – I saw –
yeah, we got our guys. We got our Ohio State haters just on time. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, so 144 attempts for over 1,000 yards. He actually led college football last year in yards per carry. I think he had 7.4 yards per carry, which is absolutely insane, especially with who Ohio State played last year. Right, They went all the way to the national championship, faced some top-tier competition. He had 10 touchdowns as well, and with him not being the goal line back, 10 rushing touchdowns is insane. And I will say his receiving ability, even though those numbers don't look particularly crazy,
right,
he's a very good receiver. So 284 yards and a touchdown through the air. His explosiveness and elusiveness are crazy. He can spin people out of the way. He can juke people out of their shoes. He's got some crazy cutting ability. He's got some very sweet feet. And he's explosive. Some really great acceleration. He's got the long speed as well. Obviously, it says here 7.1 yards a carry, not 7.4. Very efficient back. Now, in terms of the things that you have to kind of limit him for is his durability. I want to say in his junior year, his sophomore year, he was a little bit limited, right, because of a foot injury, which, he looked better than he ever has this past year. But you do have to question, if he gets a ton of carries, is he able to hold up? Because he did get hurt in 2023, I believe. And then he's got a smaller frame, which also kind of leads into the durability, right? How is this guy with a smaller frame going to hold up at the next level? We see guys like Tank Dell, who obviously is a lot smaller than Henderson, doesn't really hold up, right? Very good talent, very good yak receiver, good separator, breaks his leg. He just can't hold up under tackles, and that's just something that we have to watch with TreVeyon Henderson. But overall, he was my RB2 just because of the upside and explosiveness. What did you think about TreVeyon Henderson?
Well, I agree with you on the durability, but he does land in a split backfield, unlike Quinshon Judkins. Yep. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson did get that extension, and they just, NFL teams just aren't going to extend you and not give you the ball. So this might be an opportunity for them to, have two different options for running the ball. I mean, I know that sounds like football 101, like totally dumbed down response there, but that's basically the gist of it. I mean, how's New England going to be able to run? Because if they're able to run the ball effectively, and I think Matt Vrabel knows how to do that, then they're able to go ahead and make some plays. I know our guy Yab here doesn't really care for Henderson too much, but like you said, when you're going 7 yards a carry, that's pretty efficient, especially when you're in a Big Ten football conference with, teams that tend to have better defenses. I mean, I know SEC is still king. I don't care what any of you haters say. I don't care who won the national championship. That's a better, consistent tier of football. But Big Ten's no slouch. You're going to Penn State. They played Oregon on the road. They played Texas, beat Texas. So Ohio State was no joke last year.
Absolutely.
Well, we can go ahead and jump into the film real quick.
Yeah, I will say I want to add one more thing. So I do think they're going to be a slight split backfield. It's kind of like what you see with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I do think TreVeyon Henderson has the upside to be a player like Jahmyr Gibbs, who is my RB2 in Dynasty. He's just got that explosiveness, right? At Georgia Tech, Jahmyr Gibbs was, explosive, and then he goes to Bama, right, and just showcases some more explosiveness. I'm telling you guys, TreVeyon Henderson has that ability, and he's one of the biggest fallers in rookie drafts. I mean, I've seen him go at the 109, and I've drafted him multiple times top 5 in my rookie draft. So just saying, I think he's going to get all the receiving work. I think he's going to get pretty much the first and second down, similarly to how the Lions used Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's going to be ultra productive, and he's going to be fresh. And I think Ramondre Stevenson is going to be used for the goal line work, the short yardage work, things like that. But let's go ahead and dive right into the film with TreVeyon Henderson. So
go ahead and keep going. I'm going to take myself off camera for a moment, but go ahead and keep on going.
Yeah, absolutely. So first play here, we've got basically a power play here from TreVeyon Henderson, and this is the thing that I say Jahmyr Gibbs right? This is versus Oregon, who's fantastic school, right? Look at the speed. Look at the acceleration down the sideline. He doesn't stop either. That's insane. That's insane speed down the sideline, guys. Look, these guys over here, they're taking some great angles. These are D1 athletes, guys, running at him full speed. He's outrunning everyone. I don't care what his 40 time was. Look at the film. Look at the film. That's an insane... He just pops it to the outside and scores a touchdown. That's an insane play from TreVeyon Henderson. I know I'm hyping him up a little bit, guys, but you just have to look at the film with him. I mean, this is... Cut to the outside. Outruns all 3 of these guys in here. All 3 of them. Fights through a little shoestring tackle here. And just runs as fast as he can. Beautiful play from TreVeyon Henderson. Points up to the sky. That's God-given talent for sure. Here's another kind of power play from Ohio State. And you see him just kind of navigating through. And just otherworldly speed, man. It's just otherworldly.
Yeah, dude is electric for sure.
He's lightning in a bottle, I think. And you're gonna see another play here. So this versus Tennessee, an SEC defense, right? Very solid defense too. Tennessee is kind of a counter play here. One sec.
That was one of my favorite betting plays of the college football playoff. Is I knew Tennessee were frauds. They've been kind of thumping their chest for the Alabama win, and they really struggled against Vanderbilt to close the season out. And, I mean, they deserve to go. They qualified with their wins and stuff, but I knew that I just knew it. It was just free money.
Yeah, for sure.
Easy money because they blew them out. Tennessee went out there and didn't have a chance.
Yeah, but you'll see this. It's just him kind of being patient behind the line, which a lot of the running backs before him didn't really showcase a lot of patience behind the line. They were very, very anxious to get into the hole, but you see a very good hole here. All he's got to do is beat this guy here, makes him fall down, and then great angle from the corner. He just outruns him.
Man.
I mean, beautiful speed. He's got great elusiveness as well. So here's a game here versus Penn State where I know I pick out 2 plays pretty much, 2 good plays and 2 bad plays, but this is something that TreVeyon Henderson does better than pretty much any other running back in this class, and it's his ability to be a blocker. Look at this block from TreVeyon Henderson. I just had to put this in here.
Oh, man.
Look, and he's a very good pass protector. That's why I think he's a 3-down back at the next level, is because of that right there. He's going to lay the boom on this guy right here, and he does this constantly. He doesn't do this to just corners and safeties. He does this to edge rushers. I don't know why he has such a aggressiveness when it comes to blocking, but he has some like crazy pass protection work. And, that's another thing about him. When he's not able to outrun you, when he's going that fast, he'll just bulldoze over you. He's got some solid speed to power as well, but this is just a great block from Travion Henderson. Puts that guy on his rear, and Will Howard ends up getting a
Watch him celebrate. Watch him celebrate after it too. Watch.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of he's just a bulldog, man, when it comes to the blocking. He loves to block. He's a very willing blocker as well. Will Howard ends up getting to the end zone because of it. But here's a play where, I'd love to see him cut back a little bit. This is just one of those, when you're facing the D-line of Penn State, they've got some really good guys, some guys that are going to be probably first-round draftees next year on that interior. I think their nose tackle here is actually a high-drafted player, but this is just a play here where, I'd love to see him be able to cut, but at this point, he's just trying to get as much yards as he can, and he's got very good pad level here, and he just tries to bulldoze through. And that's what I'm going to say is a knock on him. He's 5'10", 5'11", 202 pounds. He's not the biggest back in the world. I'd love to see him kind of fight for some extra yardage. He is trying here, but you see he just doesn't have the ability to really move a pile like you'd want to. That's why I don't think he's going to be a goal line back at the next level. But I will say, once he gets moving, he can run you over. But right at the line of scrimmage like this, that's just not really his game. So here's versus Iowa. Obviously, great defense. And that looks like a solid play here. This is never what you want to see as a running backs coach, is him running into the back of his lineman. Right. You never want to see that. That's something that is a big tell that, hey, you're not really reading the hole right. So obviously, if he can use those sweet feet of his and cut up this way, and he can somehow make this guy miss like he's been making people miss all night, that's probably a touchdown.
Yeah.
But he kind of just explodes into the back of his lineman. We'll get another look at this. It's just kind of a lapse in his vision from time to time. That happens. But, you got to read your leverage here. And I'll kind of showcase this. I'll pause it to kind of showcase. So, right here, you see where the defender's going. You cut back this way. Obviously, you see the safety here. You can make this guy miss or get the most amount of yards and fall forward, whatever you need to do. There's no world where you need to be cutting back this way. And for whatever reason, that's what Travion Henderson does. And, he still gets, 5-6 yards. But overall, I'd like to see him be a little bit more consistent with his vision. I'd like to see a little bit more power on the goal line, make him move the pile a little bit more, but I don't think that's his game. What you're going to get out of Travion Henderson is a Jahmyr Gibbs-like player where he's the explosive weapon. I don't think he's the change the pace guy. I think he's going to be the premier back in that offense, and he's not going to get the short yardage work, and he's not going to get the goal line work, is what I think.
Cousin Judd says he don't give a piss. I know what he's referencing there when he says that. He's talking about Alabama with that. Did you ever see that meme video with that comedian Drewski?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't give a piss about nothing but the Tides. It's
nothing but the Tide. Yeah.
Nothing but the Tide. Well, they don't try to come in this year. So.
Yeah. I think Alabama's a sneaky college football playoff team next year. I know people aren't really saying that, but I think they have all the talent in the world. And Ty Simpson, right, is y'all's quarterback?
Yeah.
I loved him coming out of high school. I think he's a very good talent, and way to go with you guys, keeping him on the roster that long, because most quarterbacks would have transferred by now just because, sitting behind Milroe, right?
Well, I think that there needs to be something to be said for any player that sticks it out and shows that kind of
absolutely
ability to not transfer and not go and just get his instant gratification. I think that builds a character that you need.
Absolutely.
So, who would you trade Travion? I'm gonna step away for one more moment, real quick. Who would you trade Travion Henderson for?
Travion Henderson for me, I have traded him in the past, right? I did trade him plus some for Genty, so I traded him and a first for I think Genty and a second in one league. You can probably confirm that trade. I can't look at it right now, obviously, but I think it was something like that. I think I traded Travion in like a second for Genty. Travion in a first for Genty in a second or a third, something like that. But loved Henderson as a talent, and if you got him, I think you probably got him at a great value in your rookie draft. So
we got how many more running backs left too?
Yeah, I think it's RJ and then one last back after RJ.
Okay.
So
well, let's just keep on trucking here.
Absolutely. So next up we have RJ Harvey out of UCF. Guys, if you watch my sleepers video, he was one of my top sleepers pre-NFL draft when I was talking about that. He was a day 3, 5th, 6th round projected running back. But guys, this kid's special. Now he's a little bit older. He's had some injury problems in the past. He's torn his ACL before, but he's 5'8", 205 pounds. Perfect stature for me. Obviously, I love my running backs that are that size. You look at guys like Emmitt Smith. You look at guys like Barry Sanders. Those guys that were very durable throughout their careers. Those shorter backs that are a little bit bulkier. It's exactly what I want. He's got that low center of gravity. And he was a second-round pick, surprisingly, by the Denver Broncos. They loved what they saw on film. Sean Payton absolutely loved him as a prospect, picked him in the late second round, which a lot of people thought was a reach. A lot of people thought he was overdrafted. But if you look at the film, guys, you'll see some absolute flashes. So he is 24, but like I said earlier, not really big into my running back ages. I just don't think it matters all that much because most of these guys are out of the league or irrelevant by the time they're 30 anyways. But with RJ Harvey in 2024, 232 attempts, 1,500, almost 1,600 rushing yards, 22 touchdowns, and he had some decent receiving numbers out of the backfield as well, 263 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. So he's the most creative back in this class. He's got the best agility in this class. He can make you miss in a phone booth regularly. He makes people look stupid in the ACC consistently. And he's got some home run speed. I know he ran decently. I think he ran a 4.4 flat at the combine. But guys, you'll see on film, he can take it home whenever he wants to. If he gets out in space, you're not catching him. Now,
just got to correct you there that he played in the Big 12.
UCF's Big 12, not ACC?
Yeah, look at his jersey.
My bad. Big 12.
Sorry. It's all good.
That's fun. Big 12, still, he's making people look stupid in the Big 12 with that creativity and agility of his. Home run speed's absolutely there. Now, some of the stuff that I got to knock him for, right? Some people don't like him because he's an older prospect, which I can understand, right? He's already 24, almost 25. Some people aren't really into that, kind of turns him off a little bit, which is fine. And he's already had a torn ACL before. He's got a decent amount of mileage on him throughout his college career. And something else that kind of gets him in trouble a little bit. He's so good at cutting back and going to the perimeter and making big chunk plays happen. Sometimes he cuts back a little bit too much. And he'll end up getting...
No, go ahead and finish your sentence. I got something.
He'll end up getting, 3-4 yard losses because he's trying to cut it back to the outside. If you kind of remember Saquon as a rookie and a prospect coming out, he kind of did the same sort of thing where he really believed in his athleticism and his speed. So he would cut it out and try to make something happen from nothing. Most of the time it works for RJ Harvey, but at the NFL level, I don't know how much that cutback ability will translate for him, but hopefully it does.
I just wonder what the Denver Broncos were kind of thinking when they took him. I mean, Sean Payton was a coaching member in last year's draft, and they took Audric Estime, who I like way more than him. I mean, I was perplexed by the pick, but I want you to break this down and explain to me why he's going to take the job in Denver.
Yeah. Now, I do kind of see a similar sort of situation happening with the Broncos as I do the Patriots, because I do think Audric Estime, very big, bulky back. I know he's not super tall, but he's bulky. He's very physical. He's got some pretty good feet for his size as well. And he's going to be taking all that short yardage back work and some of the goal line stuff, because I do think he's much more powerful and physical as a runner than RJ Harvey. But I do think RJ Harvey is going to slot in, since he's got way more team investment than Audric Estime does. And he'll kind of slot in as that 1-2 down plotter and be in the receiving game in third down as well.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how I see RJ Harvey being. I actually comped him. Fun fact. My pro comp for RJ Harvey was LaShawn McCoy. So you're gonna see some very similar type of running style to LaShawn McCoy. So this is versus Utah State, I believe. Or no, this is Iowa State, and they're all black unis. So college football playoff team. Just so you know. So inside zone here from RJ Harvey.
Iowa State did not make the college football playoff. They made the Big 12 championship and lost.
Really?
Yeah, they lost to Arizona State in the Big 12. They were not a playoff team. Promise.
One sec.
Don't do it.
Huh?
Don't do it.
I've got I had a rendering issue here. Sorry.
Yeah, Iowa State. They played the Big 12 was kind of wacky last year with them in Colorado. And
I'm
BYU.
sorry, I got them mixed up with Arizona State.
Okay.
Oops. Same-ish type of colors. Oops.
Yep. We were cruising right along. We had technical difficulties, as will happen on live stream. We are an hour and a half in. We are wrapping this up hopefully within the next 20 minutes with these amazing running backs. This is
Here we are.
like any other Dynasty scouting report that you'll get. Everything is all just glazed over with statistics, but we go into the film and we show you why these players are going to be great. And that is why we have Bobby back on the board. You get everything all set up?
Yep, we're good now, I think.
All right,
this is a 40-second clip, so
okay.
You'll see inside zone, very typical handoff here. And you just see the home run speed.
Oh, gone.
Yeah.
You knew he was gone at the 25-yard line.
And this just I wanted to pick this play out because it doesn't showcase his agility, which we'll see in a moment. But it's just his ability to hit the hole. He's got some sweet feet
right there.
too. Yeah.
You know that
this
number
is
7
a solid team. This is a ranked opponent.
Number 7's picked up. His jock was left.
Yeah.
Man, sometimes there's nothing you can do.
You'll see another angle of this. Man, I love those all-black unis from Iowa State. But you'll see number 7 here. Boom. Quick cut. He's a very quick cutter, very quick accelerator. That is some crazy speed, and that absolutely translates to the NFL level. That's a beautiful play by him. Now, this is In the Rain versus... I'm not exactly sure who this is versus, but this is another kind of him being patient behind the line, using that little bounciness of his. You'll see another kind of inside zone here, running in between the guards here in the A and B gap, and just really navigating the pocket. And just you'll get a better view of this, right?
It's Arizona.
That is Arizona. Yeah.
Not State. It's Arizona. You could tell the end couldn't crash in time.
Yep.
Just right there, he's beat.
Yep. And you just see that cutting ability, and he just accelerates upfield just pretty much instantly. I want to say this is another good play from RJ Harvey. Nope. That's just that's something that happens with him sometimes. He just kind of is trying to find the hole, and he's sometimes just a little bit too patient behind the line, and that's just kind of like this. I just wish he cuts back all the time. Cuts back all the time, and he will cut back to this basically pylon pretty much every single time. But he just kind of waits a little bit and waits for the end to just tackle him from behind. That's a very poor play from RJ Harvey. Kind of a lapse in judgment here. He's kind of just trying to follow his blocks here, and nothing really opens up. He's using the feet to just try and make something happen, and that's a poor play. He needs to cut it to the outside there. And then here's another play here where this is just him cutting back a little bit too much, right? And Saquon did this all the time as a rookie, but something that you cannot have happen. You saw Judkins where, he didn't really have that ability to cut back. So what's he going to do? He's going to hit the hole, and he's going to get the 3 yards. Instead of just trying to make a home run play, which RJ Harvey has a ton of these types of plays on film where he cuts it back and ends up taking it to the house for a touchdown. But yeah, in an event like this, he just kind of believed in his athleticism a little bit too much. And you just see him cutting back. And you see some contact balance here, some great make you miss ability, but you can't take a loss like that. You just can't take a loss like that.
Sure.
So overall with RJ Harvey, a little too patient behind the line sometimes when holes and, gaps don't really develop. He's got a little bit of cutback ability as well, where he kind of utilizes that a little bit too much, but obviously home run speed, very good cutting ability, sweet feet behind the line of scrimmage, can make people miss in a phone booth, but he's just going to have to clean that up a little bit. And he doesn't really have that power to move a pile as well, which I don't think he's going to be a goal line back at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, you just like you said, when they're older prospects like that, I think that they're older for a reason. They have to show that they're still.
Yeah.
I think that also I'm going to pull back on that going forward a little bit because I still think early declare is a way to go when you go to running backs. But we're seeing a new era in college football with the NIL pay. And I think that there's incentives for certain players to skip the draft and stay another year, especially if they're playing. Like if they're playing and they're like, well, I can improve my draft stock and get paid. Why not stick around another season? So I can see why, 24 is a little late in the game for a running back for me. But you can see the athleticism, you can see the speed, you can see why I just was amazed like you were that he went in round 2. And
I love the talent. I really did love the talent, and I didn't expect him to go round 2. I thought he was going to go to a team in round 4, round 5, and he was going to really surprise the coaches. But obviously what I saw on film, Sean Payton also saw on film, and they wanted to take a big swing on this guy. So, I think he's a very good talent overall. And, he does have his limitations, which, pretty much every back in this class does outside of maybe Ashton Genty. But yeah, he definitely has his limitations, but I think he's very elusive. I think he's going to have a lot of big highlight explosive runs at the NFL level. But yeah, he's going to have to clean up some of that over patience, and he's going to have to clean up that cutback ability. And hopefully Sean Payton can lead him in the right direction.
It's going to be good. I've got an announcement after we go over the last prospect on our board.
Sweet.
We are cruising right along. We are an hour and a half in, and we are on to our final running back of the night, which would be
Mr. Caleb Johnson himself. A guy that I think fell a little far in the draft, guys. I really think he fell a little bit too far from what I was expecting. So Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, 6'1", 224 pounds, and he can
wait. I got to stop you. Who would you trade for RJ Harvey?
I think RJ Harvey is like a late first-round pick in rookie drafts, like probably 111, 112. I personally got him a couple of rookie drafts in the early second, like 203, 204, which I think is criminal value in my opinion for a second-round running back, especially with his upside. But, a guy that is relatively proven, like if you're able to trade like a win-now running back, like maybe a James Conner or somebody like that, or, maybe you can trade like maybe a Jalen Waddle or somebody like that. Really? People are kind of low on Waddle. I like Waddle, but man. His value is kind of a late first round pick right now. So I was thinking about guys that are around that range, right? I do love Waddle, but he's had some durability concerns, and that offense was terrible last year. But I think he's a decent target to buy low on right now. Waddle is, but a guy that's worth around that late first round pick range, I think is fair for RJ Harvey. But like you said, he's a little bit of an older prospect. He's had a torn ACL. Thankfully, that didn't completely torch his acceleration and burst, as we saw in those clips. Those were all clips from last season. He tore his ACL in, I think, 2022, I believe. That's why he's a little bit older. He got an extra year of eligibility. Yeah. So, yeah, with Caleb Johnson, super huge back, 6'1", 224. He's not Derrick Henry big, but he is pretty big. He was picked in the 3rd round. A lot of people, before, obviously everybody thought Ashton Genty was RB1, but RB2, back in 4, 5, 6 months ago, everybody was saying either Caleb Johnson or Amarian Hampton. They were going flip-flopping back and forth. He ends up being the 6th running back taken, 3rd round by the Steelers, which I don't know if there's a better landing spot for Caleb Johnson than the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he's only 21 years old. And playing for Iowa, in 2022, Iowa was one of the worst offenses in the country, but one of the best defenses in the country. Very strange team there. And over his past 2 years as a running back, he really elevated that offense with just his prowess. There was kind of like a middle-of-the-road offense, being a historically bad offense just a couple years prior to him coming on. So in 2024, 240 attempts, 1,500 rushing yards, 21 touchdowns, 188 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Kind of reminds me of, remember Sean Green? It's kind of like the same because he went to Iowa. That's kind of who I was thinking there. Man, when you talk about Iowa and that offense, like that running gag of them, the fans like re-led.
Yeah, they're losing like 10-0 games.
They had the punt squad and all that stuff. It was really funny, but yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, so things that I like about Caleb Johnson, big, powerful runner. Now, he's not really a car crash like Omarion Hampton is. He more so is like a bowling ball that bounces off of tackles, which kind of I don't like as much as just somebody that's going to plow through you. But he kind of like bounces off of people, which could lead to some injury issues at the next level because people really pop you in the NFL. And he also bounces off tackles. He's got some really solid contact balance for a guy that's that big. Normally, your guys that are going to bounce off tackles are your shorter backs, like R.J. Harvey and like Ashton Genty. But he's bigger. He doesn't matter. He bounces off tackles anyways. And he has some movement ability. Once he hits a hole, if he gets through a gap, he really can turn on the jets. He's not the quickest accelerator, but once he starts moving, he's hard to beat. So kind of like Derrick Henry in a sense. Now, some of the things that I don't like about him, I will say his acceleration's decent once he gets moving, but it doesn't really ramp up to a speed to where, he's untouchable like an RJ Harvey, and we'll see that in the film. But also his limited agility. He's not really an agile type of mover. You'll see his running style's a lot like Derrick Henry's, where he's just using a stiff arm and running. Right? That's all he's really got. He's not going to really be juking people out of their shoes, right? But overall, loved Caleb Johnson as a prospect. I think he was my RB6 coming out, which is insane. This guy is a great talent. That just goes to show you how awesome this draft class is for running backs.
Let's take a look at him. Let's check him out.
So, off the rip.
And he's going to play with Aaron Rodgers, so good luck with that, Rook.
So, first things first, they're going up against Minnesota, who is not the best team last year. But
no.
This is a wide zone scheme. He's doing the same thing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, you see very good blocking from Iowa here, but it kind of breaks down here. Cuts out. Got some great movement ability there behind the line of scrimmage. That's 6'1", 225.
He bailed out the line.
Yes, he really did.
He bailed them out because they got whooped all across the front of the line of scrimmage right there.
The outside.
The right guard, too. Like, he just ate it for lunch there.
Yeah, but their center and their left and the right. So you got your center here. These two guys really kind of dominate these two guys, but all of this area over here, they don't do a good job holding up. So you'll see that. It's a wham play again, kind of, except he doesn't really block anybody. But you'll see 3 guys basically have a free tackle on him. 1, 2, 3. Caleb Johnson just says, nah. Stiff arm, get off of me. And just has some great acceleration for a guy at his size. That's incredible. Yeah, I know it's versus Minnesota.
He made a play on number 4 there to where he couldn't he was left on an island out there by himself and couldn't get anything going.
Yeah.
Watch, you'll see it on this angle. Number 4, just thanks for playing.
Yeah, and he just uses his feet a little bit, right? And the fact that he's outrunning everybody here is kind of insane. So here's another play here. He's going to get motioned inside here, number 2. Very weird formation here. They have him lined up in line here. Kind of weird. and then they motion him to the backfield. But here's basically a power play where he's reading the A gap on both sides of the center, and he's actually going to cut it back here. And he just showcases some creativity. Guys, backs at this size don't really have a lot of creativity. We saw with Omar and Hampton, not the most creativity. He's just hitting the hole and going.
Yeah.
With him, he's got the cutback lane. This is like his fourth read in terms, like, I'll kind of pause it here to kind of showcase what his reads are here. His read is A gap, sometimes this B gap here, and then maybe cut outside. So this is like his fourth read, and he goes through it really quick. Nope, cut back.
When you go back to that, like when you go back to right there, so
he's already looking over there.
Well, that's the thing. He's just getting the ball. So there, he can already tell that the safety is, he's only got to beat that one guy right there. On that.
And eight's about to come and smack him.
Yeah. It's just, there's just no, if he looks straight right there, if he looks to the right of that guy that's directly in front of him, he's got to, basically that guy just has the angle to tackle him.
Yeah.
Now, he could have went inside and maybe only gained a few yards, but like you said, when he's
right
able
in
to
here,
but that guy on the end would have crashed in and probably made the tackle. But since he decides to foul, no, the other guy up top, this guy standing up, he probably would have crashed in, and he's got help from the safety coming inside, but outside. That was the smart play, easy touchdown. I mean,
very quick processing too, very quick intelligence here from Caleb Johnson, and 6'1", 225. Look at the acceleration here. That's great acceleration from a guy his size. Beautiful.
Man, I'm really enjoying the coach's film because I've never watched it.
Yeah.
I mean, I played Madden and video games and stuff like that. And you see it that way, but when you see it in real time,
he gets bodied. 8 gets absolutely cracked. Kudos to number 8 for Iowa because he lays the wood on him to let this play be a touchdown, but he gets cracked.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, but it's enough to just get him off him.
Yeah.
Like, even if you get leveled like that, you've kept him engaged enough to where he's not going to make the play right on the running back. So that still shows up on the film as a good play. Yeah. But, we'll see how it goes from there.
So this is an effort. This is a decent effort play from Caleb Johnson, but a play where, again, I'd like to see him cut it out to the outside. You've shown over and over again that you can get off of guys fairly easy, especially a safety. But he wants to just kind of run straight into the congestion. Now, he is a pile mover, hence why he has 21 touchdowns or 22 touchdowns. He had 20-plus touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
He's a pile mover. He is a goal line back for sure. But this is basically, I want to say this is a stretch play. No. Yes. Stretch play. I mean, there's not really much for him to do here just because he's got leverage here, leverage here. Right. This is the right move here, but, I think he's able to cut it out
outside, he might beat him or it might be a tackle for a loss.
But it also kind of showcases his ability to just hit the right hole. He's fairly smart with his vision. And, I mean, this was one of the worst plays that I could find throughout a good bit of film, which it's not even that bad of a play in my opinion. I mean, it's kind of hard to find bad plays from Caleb Johnson. I know it's kind of surprising, but he just doesn't have bad film, really. And he just fights for 4 or 5 yards there. I'd like for him to be a little bit more explosive and maybe cut it outside, but overall, I think.
We're going to see if he can get around Myles Garrett and he can get around, the Baltimore Ravens and Roquan Smith and make those guys suffer.
Yeah, for sure. Now, in this play, just kind of showcases a little bit. He's just kind of waiting for a play to develop here. And, he just isn't very certain on what he can do. Again, love to see him cut to the outside. They're not really setting the edge here. I think this is another example of him getting a huge play downfield, kind of like in that second clip. But he just kind of runs into the congestion. This is something that he does from time to time where he just kind of is a little too patient behind the line and just runs into congestion and gets, 2-3 yards. But overall, I think Caleb Johnson is criminally underrated with that draft capital. Obviously, I think people love him. I think people love the landing spot as well. So with me, Caleb Johnson going to the Steelers, they're going to run a lot of the same running concepts as Iowa did. They're a very similar offense in terms of how they run the football. Arthur Smith is going to run him a ton. Jalen Warren, his competition basically, has not proven to be healthy or very efficient when he's running the ball consistently. So I think Caleb Johnson's going to be an over 200 carry guy next year, and we're going to be very shocked that this third round back's killing it. Yeah, we all saw it coming.
What would you trade him for? What's his trade value to you?
So I also think he's around that same range as RJ Harvey, but I do think, for me at least, but I've seen him fall, to the 205, 206 in rookie drafts, which is criminal value. I personally got him in the early second in a lot of my drafts. I actually got the 203 was RJ Harvey, and then the 204 was Caleb Johnson for me. So I think I got two very solid backs in the early second round that I'm going to be able to build around for the future. But yeah, I think Caleb Johnson, like I said, you can trade guys that, I don't know. I think you could ship off a guy like Kyron for Caleb Johnson and plus maybe a first round pick or a second round pick, somewhere in there. I think Caleb Johnson's value currently is very underrated, and once he starts killing it with the Arthur Smith offense, I think people are going to be really trying to pick up some Caleb Johnson shares.
Ladies and gentlemen, what an amazing rundown of the film by our man Bobby at Big Bobby's Board, or Bobby's Big Board, I should say. Make sure you check him out on X. Make sure you check him out on YouTube. But I'm going to close this with a couple of things here. First of all, off camera before we started, Bobby was asking me who my favorite Alabama player was. And I said Tua because I'd never seen a player throw the ball like that at Alabama. I mean, from the Brody Croyle area. I mean, Jalen Hurts was a playmaker. There just never was this elite quarterback play that I can really remember until he got there. And I'll never forget in the scrimmage game, spring game, Tua was running the second team and was just absolutely outperforming Jalen Hurts in that just lasers, But the reason I brought that back up is because you were talking about Jalen Waddle. And I think Jalen Waddle is my favorite receiver, with Julio being right neck and neck and Cooper right there behind him. And it's just because I've never seen anybody that fast on film. He
looks good in OTAs too. He looks fantastic in OTAs. He's super fast and he's bulked up a little bit too.
And if in my perfect world, I would be a Dolphins fan because I'd see Tua and Waddle again. I thought that was the best combination that Alabama's had. I mean, I know Julio is obviously the bigger, more alpha wide receiver, but Jalen Waddle was like Devin Hester, just the electric. It was electric, and Tua was just people. I don't know. I've never understood dogpiling on him, but nonetheless, that's neither here nor there. And I have something to. I said I had an announcement, and with that announcement, I'm going to remove your big board, and I'm going to add something here real quick because I do sports betting, as you guys like to know. So with that being said, give me just a moment here because I am going to add this to the screen. So this is my winnable page. And when we look at my winnable page, it's Justin Paul Sports, winnable.com. It'll say Justin Paul Sports. You're seeing my view of it because this is my channel. And when you come in, it'll show you right here. It'll look like this. And based on the betting menu, Justin Paul Sports Elite Picks, let's eat. Well, did we eat today? I've got two plans. I got a free plan, which I put out. Please subscribe to that. If you don't have any money yet, subscribe to it because you'll start making money, and that'll get you to where you can get the Sharp Edge Elite plan. You with me so far, Bobby?
Absolutely.
So
you've been killing it with your picks thus far.
That's right. So that's kind of why I went in here, and there's a little bio on me, which we'll get to. And credit to Bobby for making these images for me. I greatly appreciate it.
Of course.
But I had my free appetizer. This was on my free menu today. Free pick of the day was the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox ended up winning the game outright against Kansas City 7-2. So that was a winner. And before
7-2, crazy.
Crushed them. if you go to my X profile, which is linked in here, right here, if you click the X profile, this will take you to my X profile, and you can get 125% deposit on 3 straight bonuses with the link. Just send me a direct message. I'll hook you up on 3 deposits. So DraftKings and all them, they like to give you those little bullshit single game parlays, play our stupid little plays, but they narrow it down to where you can only get bonuses on their terms, and that's not what I do here. But that wasn't part of the announcement. That's a plug. So we see it. Pick of the day. It was free. My gift to you. I'm a Sox fan. I don't normally bet teams that I like, but I liked what I saw here. The White Sox are not the White Sox of last year. They're in every game. They've been scoring runs like crazy. They've got a couple elite pitchers on there. Keep your eyes on that. There might be a bet later on the field. And if you just click this link right here, this will take you to get that 125% deposit bonus. In fact, if I click it, I think it might tell you. Well, let's see if it comes. Boom. There it is right there. Sign up. See that link? Did it pop up on your end, Bobby? Can you see it?
I cannot see it. I can't see it.
Oh, it must be because I'm not sharing that screen.
Share your entire screen. If you share your entire window, it'll pop up.
Yeah, I'm sharing only this one.
Yeah.
So, but this will take you right to it. But
Yep.
let's go to the betting menu. The betting menu is the paid picks, the subscribe picks. That's part of this plan right here. That's $99 for 14 days. I'll have plenty of access to get to me, and I'll tell you why you want to pay $99 to get my picks. Let's just take a look at how it did today. I had 4 units on play here today. Montreal Alouettes minus 5.5. They won their game hand over fist, 28-10. The LA Sparks minus 1.5. I know that's a winner. I'm just going to double check it here on ESPN for the WNBA tab real quick. And the LA Sparks won 93-79. Bobby, does that cover 1.5?
That absolutely covers 1.5.
And check it out. The women's hoops was my play of the day. Take the Sparks to light up the court with a big win, and that's exactly what happened. Montreal, lock it in. Watch the Alouettes. The Alouettes dominate the field.
And they absolutely did. 18 points.
I was watching the first half of the game before we logged on here, and Toronto was just coughing the ball up. I mean, you got to watch Canadian football because they have their unique rules about 3 downs and stuff like that, which are kind of wonky. But so far, from what I've seen this year, when they run the football, it's violence. You've got access to the All-22s, right?
For CFL, yeah, I have some.
So if you get a moment to check out today's game and yesterday's game, you might want to check out Montreal's back. And I think yesterday it was Saskatchewan's back was just in the green, which just, I mean, they look like Mike Allstott running the rock out there.
Oh, that's sick.
I mean, like, and the thing is, like, it's not really a run-based league because you can run before the snap and you only got 3 downs to get 10 yards. So it's a little less strategy involved there. But it was a banger. And then our third game, San Diego Padres were the dogs. 120 money line, underdogs, 1 unit play. Padres shut them out on the road 2-0.
Heck yeah.
So what happens when you don't lose a game? What do you use to clean up with, Bobby? The broom. You get the sweep out.
Absolutely.
I had the sweep. So $99 would have gotten you plus 4 units on the day. This is why Justin Paul Sports is here. I'm here to help you. I'm here to help my customers win. I know Bobby's he's already signed up for the free subscription thing. I know he's going to be a VIP member before it's over with. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I just wanted to say I appreciate my viewers. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Do you have anything you want to close out with?
Yeah, guys, with this year's running back class, I mean, there's a ton of guys that you need to be looking after. Guys that we didn't even cover in this list, guys like Jordan James, guys like Damian Martinez, guys that were really awesome coming out of college that, got really, draft capital, like day 3 draft capital. There's a lot of day 3 backs that I think have a lot of potential. Same thing with the wide receiver class. And next Friday, I cannot wait. We're going to be covering the top 6 wide receivers that were drafted in this class. I can't wait to do that as well. It's going to be a whole bunch of fun.
Yes, 6 wideouts. Bobby does a great job taking his time, his precious time. We both have 2 kids in the house. His are a little bit younger than mine. Of course, he's younger than I am. But for him to help contribute so much to the show, I'm very humbled to have him on every week. This is a great Dynasty show. We get all the film breakdown. We get trade breakdowns. And when the season comes around, we're going to talk about scoring. And I'm sure we'll have, because you can get, I know that everybody can get NFL All-22 film. So we'll be able to take our time to, break down maybe not as much as in-depth as we can in the offseason when we got all this time, but just enough to where, we can break down maybe some big plays or some breakouts and see what people are looking for as far as our Dynasty. And then I'll separately have all my gambling picks. I'm keeping that going strong. I will have a live stream on Sunday going over the UFL conference finals between the XFL conference and the USFL conference. And tomorrow there's a couple Canadian Football League games that I'll have posted because football is the sport that I love the most, and I might throw a Major League Baseball play in there that I liked. We'll just keep it going. And everybody that watches, you've got to tune into Bobby's channel. This dude puts out shorts all day long. His top threes, he's got lists. It's organized. It's well done. He's done nearly every graphic for the show. So make sure you follow him on X at Big Bobby's Board. Is that right?
Bobby's Big Board.
Bobby's Big Board. Sorry, I got that wrong. And definitely check him out on X. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we got one more comment here. Let's see what he says before we head out of here. Let's see what it says. Dante Thornton Jr. is the only wide receiver in the draft that matters. Isn't that right, Bob? Bobby's a friend of yours?
Yeah, he's a guy that's in a couple leagues with me. So with Dante Thornton Jr., I'll talk about him just real briefly because we're not going to be covering him in next week's show just because he's not a first 6 wide receiver. But if you guys want freakishly big, he's 6'5", 220-ish, ran a 4.340 at the combine. The only other guy that ever did that at that size was Calvin Johnson.
Man.
So has some huge upside. Lands with the Raiders where I actually think he'll play a decent amount. But very raw as a route runner, so he's going to have a lot of work to do before he becomes a very solid NFL receiver, but definitely has the upside for sure.
Is he like A.T. Perry?
Kind of like A.T. Perry, in that type of range for sure, but a little bit faster, a little bit bigger than A.T. Perry. Yeah, very much deep sleeper. I kind of liked A.T. Perry with the Saints, but obviously he's kind of bounced around, and I think he's on a practice squad right now.
I think I keep forgetting how to pronounce his name, but the guy we both like that went to Stanford and went to
Alec Ayomanor.
Man, we might have to do a bonus round on him because I like that guy too. So maybe we'll just.
He was a 4th round pick, but loved him. If you saw there, I think you posted some stuff in the Discord on him running some routes the other day.
Yeah, man. Today
he's a phenomenal route runner. I can't wait to see what he does at the X position. I think he starts at the X position for the Titans, and then they slot Calvin Ridley over to the Z, and then Xavier Restrepo, one of my biggest undrafted free agent sleepers, is going to start in the slot for them.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are signing off. It has been a 2-hour show, and we look forward to it next Friday. And like I said earlier, tune in. I will be dropping my picks tomorrow. Subscribe to my picks. Subscribe to Bobby's channel. And let's have ourselves a great weekend as we get closer and closer to the NFL kickoff in the Dynasty season.
Can't
have a
wait.
great one.